You guys are awesome. In my day and age, this would not have happened. I can tell you that. So, thank you. I have to tell you that I have known Pamela White since she was born, and she has always been a bit of a rebel. She has always fought the good fight. And am I proud of her? Yes, I am. So just a little bit of history about her. She's worked as a columnist and a journalist for 19 years. She was the first woman editor of 2 Colorado papers, and she has focused largely on women's issues such as sexual assault, intimate partner violence, and women in prison. And in 2010, she wrote Senate Bill 193, which became law on January 1st of this year and bans the use of shackles on inmates during labor and childbirth. She is a recipient of numerous state and national awards, including the National Journalism Award for Public Service, the First Amendment Award, and the 2000 Keeper of the Flame Lifetime Achievement Award from the Colorado Society for Professional Journalists for her work. She is also a multi-published novelist, and if you haven't read her books, look for them under Pamela Claire. She is a single mother of 2 grown sons. Let's give it up for Pam White. Pamela White.
Thanks, Mom. That was a bit of an ambush. That was not planned. Welcome to Slutwalk Denver. It is fantastic to see so many unrepentant sluts here today. I look out and I see sluts who identify as women. I see genderqueer sluts. I see sluts. I don't know how they identify, but I'm happy to see you all here. You're all here claiming your sexuality and your sexual identity. You're not apologizing for it, and you're saying that you deserve to be safe. And I think that's fantastic. There's been a lot of discussion online about these events, which of course are taking place all over the world. Yes. Some people said they support the cause, but they don't support the name Slutwalk because slut is a bad word, and that fighting rape and victim blaming is important, but they didn't want to get together under a banner that said Slutwalk because it was embarrassing and it was degrading. But that's precisely why the event is named Slutwalk. Because we're taking the word slut back, we're disarming it, and we're refusing to allow it to be used against anybody ever again. It's important to note that the organizers of these Slutwalk events did not choose the word slut themselves. It was chosen for them by a Toronto police officer who told a group of young college women not to dress like sluts if they didn't want to get raped. Yeah. He chose that word, and today we're throwing it back in his face. When that officer gave these college women this so-called advice, he wasn't clear exactly what it means to dress like a slut. Well, a slut is another word for whore, and whore means prostitute. So was he telling women not to dress like sex workers? And how exactly does a sex worker dress? And of course, the news for this Toronto cop is that even prostitutes, yes, sex workers, porn stars, they also deserve not to be raped. The sad truth is that a lot of people nod their heads when they hear a phrase like, don't dress like a slut if you don't want to be raped. Happened last night when I was in a store, told someone I'd be speaking here today, told him what the Toronto cop had said, and he said, well, that's true, isn't it? No. The sad truth is the officer didn't have to specify what he was going to say because everyone kind of understands it. What he's really saying is that if a woman dresses in a provocative way, she's asking to be raped. The underlying meaning, however, is this. If a woman enjoys her sexuality, she's to blame if she's raped because women, not rapists, control rapist behavior. So we're here today to say that we've had enough. No matter what a woman wears, no matter where she goes, no matter how drunk she gets, she has a right to be safe from rape. Sadly, this officer's belief is not unusual. I've covered women's issues as a journalist since 1992, when a series of letters to the editor written by men blaming a woman who was kidnapped and raped enraged me so deeply that I felt the need to speak out. There were no women working in the editorial department of that newspaper at all. Not one. Not a columnist, not a reporter. It was entirely a male staff. I talked my way into being able to write a column, and 6 years later I became the paper's first woman editor. Through the years, I've interviewed a number of rape victims, including women who were raped by strangers, women who were raped by their dates, boyfriends or husbands, women who were raped by their own fathers. One woman hit the clubs one night, woke up in an abandoned warehouse without her panties. She'd been given Rohypnol, the date rape drug, and had only the vaguest memory of the man who'd bought her a drink. One was a 14-year-old who'd been forcefully sodomized by an adult man who took her on a date. Prosecutors didn't want to take her case. They did eventually, but they didn't want to take it at first because guess what? She wasn't a virgin. Shocking, I know. They did take the case eventually, and the perpetrator was sentenced to 7 days in jail. Yeah, that's a tough sentence, isn't it? And they even gave him weekends because they didn't want to disrupt his work schedule. And then one was a man who had been raped as an adolescent by someone he trusted. He never went to authorities, and he spent his entire life, and I mean to this very day, grappling with doubts about his masculinity. Why did I choose to focus on the issue of rape so intensely? Because someone needed to be a voice for the millions of rape victims who have no voice, and because I know firsthand the suffering that results from sexual assault. I was sexually assaulted when I was 10 by the father of a classmate. I stopped by her house on the way home from school to see if she wanted to play. She wasn't home, but her father invited me to come inside and wait. Trustingly, I went in, only to be raped on his living room floor. Soul Train was on the television, and there was a black velvet painting on the wall. I was told that if I said anything about what had happened, he would tell my parents what a dirty little girl I was. In effect, he threatened to call me a slut. And in doing so, he won my silence for a very long time. I said nothing about it for more than a year, but I woke up in the middle of the night, sick to my stomach, shaking and terrified, and not even sure what had happened to me. I didn't even have a word for it. What a stupid little slut I was. What was I thinking, going into this guy's house alone with a man I barely knew? What was my plan there? I mean, don't your parents tell you not to talk to strangers? What was I thinking? I was asking for it by acting like that, wasn't I? Well, hell no. But apparently I failed to learn my lesson or mend my sluttish ways. And when I was 23 and a new mother, I moved into an apartment in CU's family housing. I stayed up late my first night in that apartment, wearing an old tattered striped nightgown and washing dishes and putting them away. We had no curtains on the kitchen windows. Two men watched from outside and used the back of their switchblades to break a window and enter the apartment. I managed to get a call off to 911, and two heroic CU officers, Sergeant Gary Arai and Commander Tim McGraw, arrived in time to prevent me from being raped at knife point by two very violent men, almost certainly saving my life and that of my baby boy. Yeah, they are heroes. It was a terrifying experience for me, one that resurrected all the past horrors and sent me over the edge into grappling with PTSD for 5 long and horrible years. But of course I should have known better. What was I thinking, wearing a sloppy old nightgown in my own home in the middle of the night in front of a window that didn't have curtains? I should have put on a bathrobe or maybe a burqa. Now you would think that no one would blame the victim in cases like mine. But you'd be wrong about that. Because over the years, well-meaning acquaintances and friends have asked me things like, why did you go into the house with him alone? Or, why didn't you think to hang sheets over the windows? You know, you could have had a bathrobe on. They expect an answer when they ask me those questions, as if anything at all that I could say could explain why such things happen in our society. Their implication is that if I had made better choices, I wouldn't have been assaulted. Better choices. Well, we can all make better, safer choices, but that's a red herring, it's a smokescreen, it's a way of moving blame from the victim to the assailant. And this is the most important thing I have to say, and that is, there is no moral equivalency between someone who does something risky and someone who rapes. A woman who walks home late at night wearing a black party dress is not even partly to blame when thugs yank her into an alley and take turns raping her. The college student who gets drunk and passes out at a party is not responsible for the man who chooses to take advantage of her unconsciousness and steal her body. The teenager who goes out with a guy and consents to kissing is not responsible when he overpowers her because he wants to score. The only person responsible when a rape occurs is the person who made the choice to rape. That is it. So much emphasis is placed on what rape victims wear, and there's no correlation between what a woman wears and whether she is raped. Rape was a reality long before there were belly shirts, thongs, and miniskirts. Let's not forget the statistics we heard earlier about the rape of men. It's lower than that of women, but it still occurs. And most of the men, I think I can say probably all of them, were not wearing miniskirts at the time they were assaulted. So why does our society persist in shaming and blaming rape victims? I think some of it can be attributed to misogyny and homophobia. Some people view any woman who owns her own sexuality, whether straight or lesbian, as a slut, and any man who isn't macho as a fag or a pussy. In the sickness of their minds, both conditions, the sexually self-determined woman and the soft or gentle man, are crimes punishable by rape. According to this circular logic, any man or woman who was raped must have done something to deserve it, or they wouldn't have been raped in the first place. Some people blame the victim out of a desire to feel safe and to shield themselves from empathizing with the victim and sharing her pain. They read about a sexual assault in the newspapers, they see it on the television news, and immediately they start asking questions. Where was she? What time was it? Was she alone? Was she drunk? What was she wearing? Who was she with? They ask these questions as a way of distancing themselves from the victim and her trauma. They tell themselves that they would never walk down the street late at night alone. They would never pass out at a frat party. They would never accept a ride home from a man they barely knew. And as they run through this list of things they would never do, they deceive themselves into feeling that they are somehow magically safe from rape. Still others focus on the action of the victim because in their minds, controlling women's behavior is the key to stopping rape. Boo. There will always be rapists, they say, so let's teach women how not to get raped. They say they want to protect women, but in truth, what they do is contribute to a culture of shame where the actions of the rape victim matter more than those of the rapist. Now, there are other cultures on this planet that put a lot of emphasis on what women do. In those countries, women are required to wear complete cover and not show any part of themselves in public because, and I have worked with men who are from some of these cultures, because to do so would perhaps give men impure thoughts and might lead to the woman being raped or having sex with someone she shouldn't have sex with. But I say that if guys are the problem, then what? They should wear the burqas and they should stay home. But I'd like to take a moment to say that standing up against rape is not about man-bashing. When I speak out about rape, I'm often accused of being anti-male or a man-hater. And if you believe that, you would have to believe then that all men are rapists. Being anti-rapist is not being anti-male unless all men are rapists. Yes, men commit the majority of rapes, both against men and women, but that does not mean even the majority of men are rapists. In fact, there is a vital role for men to play in combating sexual assault. Studies uniformly from country to country show that men and boys hear messages about ending sexual and partner violence better if they come from other men. Men's involvement in speaking out against sexual assault and partner violence is the future of rape prevention. If we're going to create lasting social change, that has got to be where the big push comes. And so I'd like for everybody to give a round of applause today to the men who are representing, who are out here. There are groups like Men Standing Up at Moving to End Sexual Assault. And they work very hard on rape prevention. There's also a group with Mesa called Peers Building Justice that my son was a member of. And recently, when I was on a college campus, I overheard a young man say about a young woman he found attractive, "God, she looks like she just wants a man's cock in her mouth." And I wanted to say to him, dude, no woman in the history of the world has just walked around all day wanting some random guy's junk in her mouth. I wanted to tell him that he needed to learn about respect and boundaries. I wanted to tell him this secret that we women know but somehow got missed in the memo that we sent out to mankind, that when a woman dresses sexy, 99% of the time she is dressing for herself. She's dressing for how it makes her feel, not because she's sending mystery signals to every man in the room that they can knock her on the ground and, regardless of what she's saying, rape her. But the young man was with a group of friends, and I knew that if I approached them and confronted him like that, it would not be pretty, and he wouldn't listen to a word I said. And I wish there'd been an adult man there who could have gone up to him and said those things. Because when a woman spends time with a real man, she leaves him feeling better about herself. Given what I know about sexual assault, I have to wonder if we've gotten the whole thing backwards. One of the running themes of slut walks all over the world has been this: why do we spend so much time telling women how not to get raped and so little time teaching boys and men how not to rape? Yeah. Why do we constantly point the finger at the victims and do nothing to counter the culture that fosters raising boys into rapists?
Because it's called victim. And if you're alive, you're a survivor.
That's true. You are a survivor. More on that to come. But I thought I would share these rape prevention tips. Some of you probably saw them on the Slutwalk Denver site. I don't know who wrote them, but whoever you are, you're a goddess. They're hilarious, and I really think they need to be posted everywhere. So on the thought that probably not everybody saw them, I'll read through them here. 1, these are sex assault prevention tips. 1, don't put drugs in people's drinks to control their behavior. someone walking by themselves, leave them alone. 3, if you pull over to help someone with car problems, remember not to assault them. 4, never open an unlocked door or window uninvited. 5, if you are in an elevator and someone else gets in, don't assault them. And this is kind of my favorite because this is what women are told all the time, right? 6, use the buddy system. If you are not able to stop yourself from assaulting people, ask a friend to stay with you when you are in public. Always be honest with people. Do not pretend to be a caring friend in order to gain the trust of someone you want to assault. Consider telling them that you plan to assault them. If you do not communicate your intentions, the other person may take that as a sign you do not plan to rape them. Number 8 is important. Don't forget, you can't have sex with someone unless they're awake. And that means your wife too, by the way. 9, carry a whistle. If you're worried you might assault someone accidentally, you can hand it to that person so they can blow it when you do. And number 10, don't assault people. Now imagine what it would be like if we treated other crimes the way we treat sex assault. For example, it is the 4th of July weekend, right? It is the deadliest weekend of the year to be on Colorado's highways. So, I guess that means we should all stay off the roads, or if we do go out, we should only go in big vehicles with 5-star crash test ratings. And if we do choose to risk our lives on the highways and are hit and hurt by a drunk driver, then I guess we know we should have made a better choice. People will ask, why were you on the highway in the first place? Didn't you know it was dangerous? Did you want to get hit and killed by a drunk driver? Because anyone who gets hurt or killed by a drunk driver obviously was asking for it if they are on the highways this weekend. Of course, that's bullshit. No one wants to get hit and hurt or killed by a drunk driver any more than anybody wants to get raped. So why is the perception so different? I suspect it's the sexual aspect of rape. Our old double standard tells us that men are overwhelmed by powerful male sexual urges, and that rape is really nothing more than a man losing control of those urges, usually because some slut provoked him. But it is an act of violence. Rape doesn't happen because a man feels so aroused by what a woman's wearing that he just can't help himself. It isn't an act of desperation committed by a man who's unbearably horny. Rape isn't about wanting a woman at all. It's about wanting to hurt a woman. Rapists don't care what you wear. They're predators in search of an opportunity. They know how to exploit vulnerability. And from their point of view, one victim is good as the next. She might be 10, she might be 75, like that poor woman who was raped in her home recently in Texas. Rape is a weapon. It's a weapon of war. It's a weapon against women. It's a weapon against men who don't fulfill gender stereotypes about masculinity. It's a weapon in prisons. It's a weapon against people who are genderqueer or transsexual or just different. When someone rapes, he's acting out of hatred, not lust. By denying his victim the integrity and control of her own body, he's trying to strip her of her sense of self, her will, her humanity. He gets off on the fear he makes his victim feel. It makes him feel powerful. I saw that look in the eyes of the 2 men who broke into my apartment that night when I was home alone. I looked at them, I got just a split-second look at their faces, and they were happy that I was afraid. My terrified screams were turning them on. They were excited, and the look, if I had to describe it, I would describe it as a vicious, eroticized sense of power. It was sick, it was ugly, and when they looked at me, I felt like I was nothing. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Byron White, who was from Colorado, had this to say about rape. Short of homicide, rape is the ultimate violation of self. Those of us who've been forced to walk that dark path know what it's like to be a dead person walking. It takes time and effort to pull your life back together in the aftermath of rape. And you're not the only one who's affected by it. Your family and your friends are hurt too. The physical and emotional injury of being raped is more than enough for any person to have to endure. But for ignorant, bigoted people to add the insult of shaming and blaming to that injury is unacceptable and will no longer be tolerated. And I'd like to speak to a moment directly to those of you who have been assaulted. You've been hurt, but with time and patience and support, you will recover. Let the thoughtless and unkind words of those who dishonor you with terms like slut, let those words roll off your back. Because people who talk to you like that, who doubt you, who ask questions like, where were you, why did you do that, who call you a slut, when they speak and open their mouths and that kind of garbage falls out, it says so much more about them than it does about you or about what happened to you. Cultivate friends who support you and who honor you for the strong survivor that you are. Remember that in the end, you will be whole again, your heart and soul intact, while the person who raped you will never be anything more than a sick and twisted rapist whom even criminals despise. The person who assaulted you tried to deprive you of your humanity. In the end, he sacrificed his own. And I'd just like to see anybody who wants to join me and put your fist in the air. If you are a survivor, scream it out. We came together today to confront the ugliness of rape and the ignorance and bigotry behind victim blaming. But let's not walk away and think we're done. This is just a moment in time. It is just the beginning. If we want the world to change, we're going to have to make it change. And there are so many ways each of us can make a difference. You can volunteer for your local rape crisis team. You can... I'm guessing you guys are from Mesa. You can also organize a group at your high school or college dedicated to peer education. You can speak up whenever you hear a colleague or acquaintance engage in victim blaming. All people deserve to live in their bodies free of sexual violence. And yes, that means sluts too. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Pamela White. Can I get another round of applause for her? All right, so now we're going to have someone from the Sex Workers Outreach Project of Colorado come and speak real quick, and then we will have our second march of the afternoon. So